What's this? Stock footage of a rotating planet Earth? That can only mean it's time for another League Lowdown. And where are we today? Comes the cry from the gentleman at the back. Well, that looks suspiciously like Switzerland to me. It is indeed the Alpine nation known for its love of winter sports, for eye-wateringly expensive timepieces, for the decadence of its rich confectionery, and for its traditions of sending oversized canines up snowy mountains armed with liqueur. But what of Switzerland's footballing heritage? What does a country boasting clubs named after noisy insects and youthful males offer fans of Football Manager? How does the league work? Who are the major clubs? And what challenges lie in wait? We investigate in the League Lowdown Guide to Switzerland. So, welcome back to the League Lowdown. We are, of course, in Switzerland this time. Now, granted, this may not be the first country that many people think of when deciding what countries to load in their next game of Football Manager, but Switzerland may just surprise you. It only has 2 playable divisions, but within that, it has teams from 3 different communities. It has some very large clubs. It has some sleeping giants as well. So, without further ado, let's introduce you to the Swiss league system. So compared to other nations that we've looked at on the League Lowdown, Switzerland has a refreshingly simplistic league structure. It has 10 teams in the top flight, or the Super League. Teams play each other over a 36-game season. There's no complicated league splits. Teams just play each other 4 times per season, twice at home and twice away as well. The team that finishes top are crowned the champions. The team that finishes 10th are automatically relegated. The team that finishes 9th is subjected to a playoff game with the team that finishes 2nd from the division below, known as the Challenge League. In terms of European places, the top team qualify for the Champions League. The teams that finish 2nd, 3rd and 4th get to qualify for the Europa League. And then from 2021, you've also got qualification for the Europa Conference League as well, which will add a 5th continental place of qualification to the Swiss League. Plus, there's a team down in the Challenge League that routinely qualifies for Europe as well. So potentially you can have 6 teams from the Swiss league structure all competing in Europe on an annual basis. In terms of the teams that you can take charge of, the 2 teams that were relegated out of the Super League when the season eventually finished after quite a long lockdown were the French-speaking team Neuchâtel and then the team Thun as well. So you'll find both of those teams at the start of FM21 starting out in the Challenge League. If we drop down to the Challenge League, that also has 10 teams in it. The team that finished 10th get relegated, although when the league resumed for the 2019-2020 season, they aborted any relegation for that season. So the same teams will still be playable for FM21. The 2 teams that got promoted this season, once the league did resume, were the French-speaking Lausanne and then the team from Liechtenstein, FC Vaduz, were also promoted as well. So that's the league structure we've got in terms of Switzerland's top 2 divisions. But who are the big teams that you could take charge of as you launch your Swiss Football Manager adventure? So if we have a look at the previous winners of the Swiss Super League, we'll see that over the previous decade at least, Swiss football has been dominated by 2 clubs. We have Roger Federer's favourites, FC Basel, a German-speaking team who play at St Jakobs Park, almost a 40,000 capacity stadium. They have been enjoying probably the most successful spell of their history since the turn of the millennium. They've got 20 Swiss Superliga titles, and you can see just how many of them are there since the year 2002. So they are certainly one of the biggest clubs that you could take charge of in Switzerland in Football Manager. They've got pretty good facilities by Swiss standards. They will also have produced a lot of the Swiss players that you may be familiar with, such as Shaqiri and JACTA, players such as that. They've got exceptional youth recruitment, excellent academy coaching, and superb youth facilities as well. So you can see that if it's a youth academy challenge that you are after, FC Basel is definitely a good destination for you to go calling to. Over the last 3 years, because Young Boys also won the Swiss title when it was resumed in 2020, they play at the National Stadium. They have a 32,000 capacity stadium that they play in, and they have got their own pretty decent history. So they've got 13 league titles to their name, 14 league titles by the time you pick up a copy of FM21, and you'll see that before the last 3 years they've been in the doldrums a little bit, not winning a league title since the 1980s, but they have certainly restored themselves to their former glory, and they are another of the top teams that you can take charge of. Their facilities maybe not quite as impressive as Basel. They've not had quite as many years of Champions League football to rely on to build up their finances, but they've still got excellent youth recruitment, good academy coaching, although on the facilities side they're certainly lagging behind their rivals from Basel. But what about teams outside of the big two? Are there any other teams in Switzerland's top flight that might just make the basis of an interesting save in Football Manager? If you like the teams that you take charge of in Football Manager to have a little bit of history about them, then there are a couple of clubs in Switzerland that might appeal to you. The first of them is the oldest club in Switzerland that is still active, and that is FC St. Gallen. Now, they have a pretty decent sized stadium by Swiss standards, holding just under 20,000 fans. But this is traditionally a mid-table team in Switzerland, and they don't have the trophy cabinet that's quite as full as some of their rivals. In fact, they've only won the Swiss Cup once in their history, and that was back in the 1960s. They've got 2 Superliga titles to their name, but there was almost a century between those 2 victories. The first coming in 1904 and the second coming in the year 2000. But if you want to take charge of Switzerland's oldest team, then St. Gallen is definitely the club for you. However, if we head back down into the Challenge League on FM20, although they've been promoted back to the Super League for FM21, and take a look at FC Lausanne, who are one of the leading teams from the French-speaking regions of Switzerland, well, we have a club that lays claim to being the oldest football team in continental Europe. Founded in 1896 in its current form of FC Lausanne Sport, a previous incarnation of the team was called Lausanne Cricket and Football Club, founded in 1860, which some historians believe make it the oldest club in continental Europe, and they've got quite a bit of success about them as well. 9 Swiss Cup wins, 7 Superliga crowns as well, although none for quite a few decades. Maybe Lausanne might be the team that's got the history that you're looking for. Well, there is perhaps no better example of a sleeping giant in Swiss football than the nation's most successful team, Grasshoppers Zurich, who are one of the German-speaking clubs in Switzerland, hailing from the city of Zurich, with a 26,000 capacity stadium. They are currently in the Swiss Challenge League. They finished 3rd last season, so missed out on even securing a playoff place, and so will be playable in the Challenge League from FM21. But if you can get them promoted, then this is a club that is yearning for the big time, given the history of the club. 19 Swiss Cups to their name, as well as 27 top flight titles as well, more than any other club currently playing in Switzerland. You'll see that they were winning the top flight as recently as the early noughties, but since then they are a team that has fallen on hard times, both in the footballing sense and in the financial sense as well, but they are still one of Switzerland's biggest clubs and the one with perhaps the richest history. And look at the facilities that they boast as well for a team that's not even playing top flight football. So in addition to those great training facilities and great youth facilities, you've got excellent academy coaching and youth recruitment at your disposal as well. So you will be able to bring through players, hopefully, to put in your first team. And if you can take them to the top flight, well, you might be able to restore this grand old name of Swiss football back to their former glory. But what about other challenges that you might be able to take on in Switzerland in FM21? Is there anything that's a little bit more unique? So one possible challenge for players of Football Manager that fancy giving Switzerland a go might be to take charge of one of the teams that come from the Italian-speaking region of the country. Now, traditionally the more successful teams in Swiss football come from either the German or French-speaking area. So teams like Grasshoppers and Basel and Young Boys are from the German-speaking regions, and teams like Lausanne or perhaps Servette, who come from Geneva, come from the French-speaking regions. But there are a couple of different teams from the Italian-speaking territories that might be able to offer you a challenge in Football Manager. So in the top flight, the Super League, there is FC Lugano, who have a stadium that holds just under 15,000 people, and they are one of the Italian-speaking teams that have actually won some honours in the Swiss top flight. So they have 3 Superliga titles to their name, and they've also got 3 Swiss Cups in the trophy cabinet as well. If you are prepared to drop down and start your journey a little lower down, then in the Challenge League there is also the team of Chiasso, who are a little bit of a smaller club, only got an 11,000 capacity stadium, and they don't have any top flight honours or Swiss Cup titles to their name either. But they certainly provide an interesting challenge for players of Football Manager that are looking for something a little bit different. But one of the other interesting clubs to take charge of in Switzerland on Football Manager is FC Vaduz. Now, what makes this an interesting challenge is Vaduz are not even from Switzerland. They hail from neighbouring Liechtenstein. As such, they're not eligible to qualify for Europe through the place that they finish in the Swiss League. And for FM21, well, they will be competing in the Super League. But even if you were to guide them to the summit of Swiss football, they wouldn't be able to take up a place in the Champions League. However, all is not lost, because Vaduz qualify for European competition most years by courtesy of entering and normally winning the Liechtenstein Cup competition, which means that you are virtually guaranteed Europa League football on an annual basis. And that also gives you an unconventional route into the Champions League, because, of course, if you were able to win the Europa League with Vaduz, you would gain a place in the Champions League. Now, that is quite the monumental challenge, but you could make the challenge with FC Vaduz even greater and also take charge of the Liechtenstein national team. Imagine trying to qualify the team from Liechtenstein for the Champions League by courtesy of winning the Europa League, as well as taking the tiny nation of Liechtenstein to a European Championships, or maybe even to a World Cup finals. So that might certainly be a challenge that holds a little bit of appeal for lots of fans of Football Manager. They are a team that doesn't have the greatest of histories in the top flight, not even playing in the Super League that many seasons in their history, and certainly a team that is yet to win it. But that could certainly be a challenge that might appeal to you. But apart from those challenges, are there any youth academy challenges that clubs in Switzerland might present you with? For fans of developing their own youth academy graduates in Football Manager, the 2 clubs that probably stand out in Switzerland we've already looked at, and that would be FC Basel and Grasshoppers from Zurich. But there is another team in the city of Zurich that might potentially be the basis of your youth development game, and that is FC Zurich, who also have a pretty rich history in terms of the honours they've won in Switzerland, with 10 Swiss Cup titles and 12 Superliga titles as well. But founded in 1896, this club is indirectly responsible for some of the greatest talents to come out of Europe and beyond in the last century, the likes of Lionel Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol, to name but a few. And that is because one of the co-founders of FC Zurich, a gentleman called Joan Gamper, was also, later on when he lived in Catalonia, the founder of FC Barcelona as well. Now, Zurich haven't produced talent quite on that scale themselves, but they do have some pretty decent facilities if you'd like perhaps more of a challenge than taking charge of FC Basel in your youth development save. So they've got excellent youth recruitment, excellent academy coaching, great youth facilities and great training facilities as well. So FC Zurich, with a rich history that they are rightly proud of and a fierce rivalry with Grasshoppers as well, might be an interesting team for you to take charge of. So there is your whistle-stop tour of Swiss football, obviously with only 20 playable teams and 2 divisions to compete in, then unless you head into the Steam Workshop, where you can unlock as low down as the 7th tier of Swiss football, it might not provide all players with the depth that they are looking for, but certainly as a stop-off on a journeyman tour, it is an interesting league in which to compete. We are going to see you very, very soon as we choose another country to make the focus of our League Lowdown.